Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Healthy You podcast. Today, we're joined by Dr. Patrick Holford, who is the founder of the Institute for Optimum Nutrition in the UK, whose patron was twice the Nobel Prize winner, Dr. Linus Pauling, who really put vitamin C on the nutrient map. Patrick knows more about vitamin C, D, zinc, and other important nutrients more than anyone else, especially in this time period, to protect themselves from COVID-19. And he has worked closely with intensive care units all over the world, from China to America. He is the author of over 40 books, including his new book, Flu Fighters, which we have here in the Healthy You shops. And in fact, he's just going to show us the book cover. It is essential reading for this time period. And so, welcome, Dr. Patrick Holford.
Very much, Jumbo Abari.
Nice to have you here on the Health You podcast. So I know a lot of people are curious about what's happening in the world, especially from an expert's position. So I think we're just going to jump straight into the questions. What is the immune system, and how important is nutrition and vitamins for immunity?
The immune system is made of a whole lot of cells. For example, we have things called B cells and T cells and macrophages. For example, macrophages are like vacuum cleaners. They're going to spot a virus or a bacteria and gobble it up. Yeah. And we're making these cells all the time. In fact, in the time that we've been speaking just now, you will have made about 5 million of them. Wow. And your ability to make immune cells is totally dependent on nutrition. To give you an example, these immune cells, they start from the bone marrow. It's called stem cells. They then go to a gland called the thymus here, where they're trained up, if you like, into Army, Navy, Air Force, B cells, T cells, macrophages. Yeah. And the actual, if a child is deficient in zinc, the thymus actually shrinks in size. And they make less immune cells. And if you give them zinc, the thymus will grow and make more immune cells. And so the immune cell's function is totally dependent on things like zinc, vitamin D, vitamin C, etc. And to put it into context, if someone is very vitamin C deficient, which is called scurvy, where the teeth fall out and you bleed and so on, the people who die from scurvy actually die from pneumonia, which is a lung infection, which is what's happening in COVID-19. So without vitamin C, basically the immune system shuts down. So nutrition is vital for your immunity.
Yes, and of course, I feel like now with the prevalence of talks on immunity because of COVID-19, nutrition is sort of getting the spotlight that maybe it never had before. So of course now, that's a unfortunate but good segue into coronavirus and COVID-19. So I know a lot of people say that, it's just a flu, or it's, maybe something that's not as serious, but why is the world taking it so seriously or with such importance?
It is a particularly nasty flu, which in effect goes through 3 stages. And generally the first week it's infecting the throat. And if it's not dealt with quickly, and by the way, with the right nutrition, you can normally recover in 24 hours, if not 48.
Yes.
But we'll talk about that. But if you don't recover, then in the second week it goes into the lungs. And then in the third week, and especially if you run out of vitamin C, and my colleagues in America have tested their ICU patients, that means intensive care unit patients, and every single one has had a level of vitamin C so low to diagnose scurvy, in most cases undetectable. And if that happens, you go into this third phase where the immune system overreacts. It's called a cytokine storm. It's what happens in sepsis. Think of a bacterial infection in the blood that actually kills 1 in 5 people. More people in the world die from sepsis than cancer.
Wow.
And it's this final stage overreaction of the immune system that's killing people, not the virus itself.
Yes.
So that's kind of what's happening. And of course, what's amazing is that in China, they actually mandate, so it's part of the Shanghai guidelines of the Medical Association in China, the treatment of this with vitamin C. It's
Wow.
mandate. It's
Yes.
happening. They actually shipped in on February the 2nd into Wuhan. I've been talking with the professors running the major hospitals in Wuhan. And on the 2nd of February, they shipped in 50 tons of vitamin C, which is 50 million doses. And they gave it to every single hospitalized patient, ICU patient, and also all the health workers. And within 3 weeks, the cases just absolutely plummeted. But somehow, in Europe and America and all over the place, there seems to be this suppression of information about the power of nutrition. And my colleagues in America in the ICUs, who are using 3 things, which we can maybe unpack a little bit as to why. One is steroids. This is the body's own natural inflammatory agent called cortisol. And there are drugs like methylprednisolone, which are very inexpensive, well-known drugs. And the combination of steroids with vitamin C and anticoagulants, because this particular virus in the later stages attacks the lungs and causes some very weird blood clots, and so you need anticoagulants.
Yes.
The most common drug there is heparin. And the combination of these 3 has led to no deaths. And I should qualify to say that is no deaths in anyone who is under 85, who doesn't already have an end-stage disease like liver cirrhosis or emphysema. In other words, in people who would be expected to die in the next year over 85, there are still some deaths, but in America, the ICUs using this approach have no deaths. So, however, globally, we have a lot of deaths because we're not really understanding and tackling this thing right. And at the core of it is nutrition.
Yes. So I think, like you sort of mentioned, vitamin C, as China has clearly demonstrated, plays a really big, vital importance with this whole situation. So I know you sort of briefly touched on the next question, but is vitamin C supplementation something that people can use to protect themselves? And just how important is maintaining that vitamin C intake?
Well, the first thing to understand is that all animals make vitamin C, except for primates and guinea pigs, which is why they became the experimental animal, and bats. So the reason we're not worried about the dogs and the cats and the sheep and the goats and the cows, all of which are exposed to this coronavirus, is because they make a lot of vitamin C. And to put it into context, a goat in a normal day is going to make about 15 grams or 15,000 milligrams of vitamin C. And that is 1 gram is about 20 supermarket oranges. Now, if you expose that goat to a virus, they will make up to 100 grams. Now, a gorilla will eat 4.5 grams a day, and most, smaller monkeys, I mean, if you did it compared to our body weight, are going to be eating about 2.5 grams a day, which is about 40 oranges worth. So the point is that we, together with the guinea pig and the fruit-eating bats, at some point in our distant evolution, we lost the ability to make vitamin C from sugar, because it's made in all plants from fructose and in all animals from glucose. We lost that ability. And because vitamin C is made from sugar, in effect, as long as we were able to eat it, so imagine we're in a tropical jungle, we're eating it, then we'd have all this extra energy and we would become like top primate. And gradually our bloodline, became dominant, and all human beings do not make vitamin C. One professor, just to sort of give you the idea of this, said, if the bats are not making vitamin C, why aren't they dropping out the sky with COVID-19? And the answer is that a bat is the only flying mammal. And when it flies, its heart rate goes up to 1,000 beats a minute. Its temperature shoots up by as much as 2 degrees.
Yes.
And it's basically doing interval training. It does these short bursts of fast, exercise. And it's got such a strong respiratory and cardiovascular system that, it's no big deal, this virus. So they can carry it, but they don't die from it. We get it and we can die from it, because we're actually designed to have a lot of vitamin C. And if we do what an animal does, if I ever I actually had this infection. if I ever get a flu-like infection or a cold, I always take between 2 to 4 grams of vitamin C straight away. So we're talking about 2 to 4 pills. If you use a powder, four
Yeah.
grams, about a teaspoon.
Or the
I do that
tablet.
straight away to up my level, and then I take 1 gram an hour. Now, many people will say if you take vitamin C, you're just making expensive urine because it goes in and out. And that is absolutely true. It does go in and out. But in that 1 hour period, you get the blood level high. And that's why you have to keep taking it if you are sick. Now, if you're not sick, having 2 grams a day, which is what I take every day, and you want one in the morning and one in the afternoon, because it will only raise your blood level by for about 5 hours.
Okay.
So that's why you don't want to take 2 grams in the morning. You'd rather have 1 gram in the morning, 1 gram in the afternoon.
Fix it out a little.
And then you're doing pretty much what animals do and what our physiology is designed to do. And the important thing to know about vitamin C is two things. One is it's incredibly safe.
Okay.
Like 10 milligrams, which is what you need to prevent scurvy at one end, 100,000 milligrams at the other end is not dangerous. If you drink 10 liters of water in 10 minutes, you're dead.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's safer than water, number one. And number two is if you have more than you need, you get loose bowels. So it's very simple. If you're getting excessively loose bowels, which for many is a benefit, by the way, it's a clue that,
Exactly.
then take less. So
Yeah.
when you do get the symptoms of a cold or flu, you take 1 gram an hour until you forget because you're well. Now, when I got this virus, I'm pretty certain it was this virus because I got it bang in the middle of the summer and it had all the symptoms.
Yes.
Then what happened was I suffered for 18 hours. And at the end of 18 hours, suddenly the fever breaks, you have a little cold sweat and it's over. So basically by the end of 24 hours, I was feeling absolutely fine, stopped taking my 1 gram of vitamin C and went back to having 2 grams a day. And that's how it works. I'm in my 60s now. I've been doing that since I was 20
Yeah.
and I have never, ever had to take a day off work.
So, and wow, first of all, that's incredible. And it just really shows the power of nutrition and supplementation as well, like you mentioned. And I know that's a lot of people's concerns is vitamin C dangerous? Is there a chance of, any potential side effects of taking too much of it? But like you mentioned, its
Nothing.
pros definitely outweigh any sort of potential cons that might be there. And even then, it's less harmful than water, for example.
Yeah, there's no danger of vitamin C at all.
Okay, fabulous. And then another fun little, tidbit of the bats was quite interesting. And I know there's been a lot of discussion from our end as well on exercise and improving your immunity. And so, other than vitamin C and supplementation, how does exercise play a role with boosting your immunity?
Well, you've got to be a little bit careful. I mean, exercise is good.
Yes.
And when someone exercises, they produce more exhaust fumes from burning sugar, which are oxidants.
Yes.
So you need more antioxidants. So, for example, when you hear of these marathon runners and ultra sports people actually getting sick, and this has happened in Olympic athletes where they end up with immune suppression. It's
Yeah.
very simply because the more you exercise, for example, the more vitamin C you need. It's as simple as that. So what we're actually finding with this COVID-19 is that some people who perhaps are doing very strenuous work and not increasing their intake of vitamin C get hit harder. So go, that's really strange. That guy is so fit. He runs 10 miles every day
Yeah.
and he's really been hit hard. And
Yeah.
the reason is because that exercise will already have consumed his antioxidant power. Along comes the virus, there's no defense.
Yeah.
So exercise is good, but you don't want to overdo it. And
Always
you certainly
moderation.
don't want
Yes.
and you don't want to do it without having more nutrients. It's very simple. If you're metabolizing twice as much, you need twice as much vitamin C. There are other nutrients as well, but I'm using that as an example. Or you want to be eating a lot of multicolored foods because it's the strong oranges and the reds and the greens and also the yellows like turmeric and mustard and all the berries, beetroot, butternut squash, all these strong colored foods we know are rich in antioxidants. So that's kind of what we should be eating as well.
Yes, so of course with exercise, like anything too much of a good thing can be a bad thing, and it's critical whenever sort of looking at your health, even for a particular instance like COVID. It's a very sort of holistic approach. So
Actually, do you know that the only two forms of exercise that have been very clearly shown to boost immunity and T cell counts and such things is yoga and Tai Chi.
wow, amazing. Those are sort of the lower impact, more
Hmm. But they
lifestyle.
do actually, they do boost immune system. So it's not just
Incredible.
about, sort of making muscle and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And now back to sort of the more somber COVID topic, though.
Hmm.
We've read about the vast differences in deaths across the countries. So why
Hmm.
does this happen?
Well, I mean, first of all, there is a flu zone, which you're not in.
Okay.
So there were predictions of massive deaths in equatorial Africa, but it was stupid because, we know that you guys have way more sunlight, which means you make way more vitamin D. You spend a lot more time outdoors, which already means you're not, you have kind of less exposure.
Yeah.
And, so if you look at any flu season, the flu season basically, in most parts of the world is kind of November, December, January, February.
Yeah, the winter
Um,
season's colder.
yeah, and it builds. So January, February are the sort of critical months, and it just goes perfectly in line with vitamin D levels. Vitamin D is made in the skin from the presence of sunlight. As soon as you're up to somewhere kind of like France and even further north, like the UK, or the same, in the southern hemisphere, you don't have enough angle of sun from October to make vitamin D. You never have that problem in Kenya. You've got so much vitamin D pouring in from the skies.
And it's
So
almost
that
pretty much a similar season the entire year round.
exactly. So, there's a slight increase in sort of flu risk in your kind of more humid season. So you might be talking kind of May and June, but basically, from now up till March, really, you've got a clean run of loads of sunlight. It's
Yeah.
important to know, by the way, that we test vitamin D deficiency in people who live, basically you don't make vitamin D behind glass. So you don't make it in your car, in your air-conditioned car. And if you drive into the air-conditioned mall, you're
Yeah.
not going to make it in the mall. So you do actually need to expose yourself. Now, in the UK, we have a big instance in people with dark skin. Surprise, surprise.
Mm.
So, the darker your skin, the more sunlight you can tolerate. And by the way, you make almost all your vitamin D in the skin in the first 20 minutes of exposure.
Yes.
So, so I actually, when I'm in Kenya, I want my first 20 minutes of sunlight to be without any sunblock, right?
Yes.
I use a vitamin A based skin cream which protects the skin but doesn't stop the vitamin D manufacture. And by being outdoors and also being a little bit fitter, then there's less virus. And then the third factor, which is just so obvious, is basically viruses can't survive above 30 degrees.
Yes, I guess it's a lot warmer
You
in
know,
countries like this.
so the countries that are being hit hard are basically the countries in the flu zone, who don't get enough sunlight, don't make vitamin D, where the temperature is lower, where the humidity is higher. So we're talking cold and wet.
Yeah.
And in urban populations who are living very packed together, and in the winter, you're much closer together in,
More
in
indoors
places.
and yeah,
Yeah,
more
traveling,
susceptible to
traveling to work, crushed together in transport and all that sort of stuff.
yeah.
And also there's a skew because the sort of Asian countries like South Korea, Japan, and to some extent New Zealand, Australia, and China, they're used to this. I mean, they had the SARS attack, which we
Yes.
didn't have, and they learned about masks, they learned about vitamin C. It's very common practice in
And the
South Korea
precautions to take,
to
yeah.
do that. They got their testing together really fast.
Yes, yeah.
Uh, we in the UK are still kind of struggling to do that.
Yeah.
So you know, they're just leagues ahead, and we should really be looking at the countries doing really well. I
And
just spoke to someone in Barbados. In Barbados, they were told, get outdoors, keep your vitamin D up, take vitamin C, eat the right thing, keep fit, and they haven't had a death.
wow, incredible. And so now with the winter, almost the whole year has gone by and now winter is approaching, is there a fear that they might be the so-called second wave coming?
Yeah, there's a tremendous fear about that, but I don't think it's, I mean, I think there will be a sort of a second wave, but it is going to be nothing like as severe. And I'm talking
Yeah.
here more from a sort of European point of view.
Yes.
Um, you're not really, in the same second wave zone because you don't have that season about to hit you.
Yeah.
So it's not,
And in
quite so
fact,
relevant.
towards the end of the year, it's summer here, so
Yeah.
should be different
And
as well.
there are a few misunderstandings. One is the antibody tests. You can be immune, having been exposed, and not test positive on an antibody test. So there's a lot more immunity than going around than is really being credited, because we still haven't found the exact right way to measure
Yeah.
it. And there's also a confusion now, because a lot of countries, and this is very common in flu epidemics, they finally get their testing together. It's called a PCR test, a swab test,
Mm.
which looks for RNA fragments of a virus. And when you have a very low instance in the population, you get a lot of false positives. So
Yeah.
certainly in the UK, we're in the middle of a case-demic, which means that cases are going up, but hospitalizations, particularly in intensive care units, and deaths are not. So
Okay.
we call that a case-demic. So
Mm.
more apparent cases, but what really counts, I mean, the thing you can't cheat about is deaths.
Yes.
Well, you can sort of, because there are some people dying of COVID, and there are an awful lot of people who are dying with COVID, which is a
Yeah.
different matter. But deaths, you sort of can't cheat on. So my interest, I monitor deaths, all in all the countries that I'm working in. So
Yeah.
I don't think there'll be a big second wave. And what I hope is that doctors and people, and certainly intensive care units, wake up to the fact that vitamin C, zinc, and vitamin D are really, really important and can make a massive difference, and certainly a life-saving difference. So in the UK, we only have one ICU using vitamin C. They're only giving a gram every 12 hours intravenously, so it's worth a bit more
Yeah.
bang. They wanted to give 2 grams every 2 hours. There weren't supplies. It's so ridiculous. This is so cheap. In America, they're using 12 grams. And the one in the UK has reported a 29% mortality, and the average in Britain is a 41% mortality. So
Wow. Big
they're
difference.
saving at least 1 in 5 more people. And in China, they've got the mortality right down. So we wouldn't be so scared if we were treating it right. And unfortunately, the obstacle to treating it right is that there's kind of absolutely, there's no money to be made in vitamin C. It's dirt cheap.
Yeah. Yeah.
The money is in new drugs that can be licensed, vaccines that can be licensed, and so on. So unfortunately, there is a skew away. And many, doctors will say, oh, vitamin C, you only need enough to prevent scurvy. But the point to make here is that these people have scurvy. And
Yes.
the treatment of vitamin C medically of scurvy is intravenous vitamin C.
Yeah.
So what you've got to understand is what you need in the way of nutrients when you're not sick is completely different to when you are sick. And if I might just bring in zinc here, it's a very important mineral. You get it in seeds and nuts and fish and eggs, basically anything that grows. So if you plant a bean in the ground, it has to have zinc. So you and I need about 15 milligrams of zinc a day. I supplement 10 milligrams in a multivitamin.
Yes.
I'm going to assume I'll eat at least 5. That's what I need. But the amount that actually reduces the duration of infections by a third,
Yeah.
viral infection, about 60 milligrams.
Wow.
So
That's a lot more.
much higher, 60 to 80 milligrams. So my vitamin C, for example, that I take, my 1 gram vitamin C, it actually has 3 milligrams of zinc in it. Now, if I take 20 of those in a day, which is 20 grams of vitamin C, 1 an hour, and I'm going to sleep, I'll wake up in the
Yeah.
middle of the night and take a couple. I'm getting 3 milligrams of zinc, times 20, I'm getting 60.
Yeah. And
So I
that's
take a vitamin C with zinc. So when I go on the high dose, I'm getting the right level of zinc, the right level of vitamin C. So what your body needs when you're under viral attack is completely different to what you need to maintain your health.
yes. So I think that sort of is a good kind of answer to the question of, is supplementation different from when you're sick versus not sick. And
Hmm.
so we just have about 5 minutes left. And with the conclusion, then, now if I was just the average person, and, like you mentioned, obviously, maybe from a corporate perspective, vitamin C is not an emphasis because there's no money to be made. So now I sort of see it's important that people take their health and nutrition and supplementation into their own hands. And so now, just as an everyday person living in Kenya, what's sort of your takeaway points that people should be doing, and how can they protect
Okay.
themselves?
All right. So first of all, you've got to go and buy some 1 gram vitamin C,
Okay.
so that you've got a supply. So if you get sick, you can do the gram an hour. So
Okay.
everyone should have that in your sort of medicine
Vitamin
cabinet.
C. Sorry, yes.
And similarly, zinc. And if you can find a vitamin C with zinc, all the better. You kill two birds with one stone. So that's what you need.
Yeah.
Next is you want to make sure your vitamin D level is high. Now,
Mm.
if you can have a blood test for vitamin D, you want to be seeing it up at the level of 75 to 100 nanomoles per liter, and then you're okay.
Yeah.
Vitamin D does not kill a virus. So in other words, you don't need to take a certain amount every hour. You
Just good
just need
at
to
that level.
make sure that your vitamin D is up. If it is not up, then a health food store will give you a 1000 IU, which is 25 microgram vitamin D, which you
Yeah.
could take every day, for a month or
Make sure you get
however
the
long,
level
get your level up. So that's critical.
there. Okay.
Eat well. If you're diabetic, if you're overweight, if you're munching a lot of sugar, the sugar and vitamin C transport system is exactly the same.
Yes.
So this could not be a better time to eat healthy, eat
Mhm.
all those wonderful multicolored foods I was talking about, and just don't do a whole lot of junk. Alcohol also, I know it's a bit prohibited now in
Kenya.
Kenya.
Yeah.
Um, Alcohol, depletes the immune system. So be aware that, if you're eating a lot of sugar and you're drinking a lot of alcohol and you're not doing any exercise because you're
Doesn't
in
help you.
lockdown,
Yeah.
none of that is helping you.
Okay.
Obviously, drink enough water. That's very important. Watermelon juice is a fantastic antioxidant. So get some watermelon with the pips in it, put it in a blender, whiz it up with the pips, and then
End
you've
up
got
every.
zinc and selenium in the, you got everything. Next thing I would do is if you get a whole lot of ginger, if you don't have a juicer, but you know someone who does, go around with a big stack of ginger, make some ginger juice, pour it into ice cube trays,
Oh, brilliant.
stick it in your deep fridge. You could do the same thing with lemon or lime, because when you get sick, if you take some vitamin C powder, for example, and maybe a little bit of juice and some hot water and pop in a ginger ice cube and a lime ice cube. I'm only saying that because when you get sick, you go, oh, damn, I've got no ginger. And
Yeah.
you don't want to go shopping,
Yeah.
and you've got it there. High level
Have to.
ginger is very, very, very good for a sore throat. But
Yeah.
the most important thing is it's your life and people are not educating you, and you have to educate yourself. And
Yeah.
that is why in lockdown, I wrote Flu Fighters
Yeah.
to educate yourself. Now, if for any reason you can't afford it, it's not very expensive.
Yeah.
We've made it as cheap as possible. Then do go to flufighters.net,
We'll put the link
and
up on the screen.
yep, and you'll see that there is a free chapter 9 that you can send to all your friends. Please do, because it's the life-saving chapter. It's free, and it's called Surviving Respiratory Distress. It tells you what to do, if things do get more serious.
Which
We're
is
hearing
so
about the
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're hearing about the R number.
Yeah.
A number of people get infected. I want to get the R number for education above 2.
Okay.
So ideally, get the book, maybe get 2 books, give one away,
Yeah.
read yours, then give it away, tell the people who are reading it to then pass it on.
And to share.
And because actually, if we get enough people knowing what to do, which is all in the book, taking vitamin C if they get sick,
Yeah.
this really needs to be no big deal.
I completely agree. And so this is a brilliant segue to all our viewers. We have it in Healthy You, and it's, I suppose a lot of what you've mentioned and more. So everyone's adequately equipped to deal with viruses and infections like COVID and other. And it's just, of course, I'm sure something good that in today's day and age, we should know how to protect ourselves and really take that into our own hands. So yeah, thank you
There
so
you
much
go.
for watching who's online. And thank you so much, Dr. Patrick, for your time. It was very informative, very educational, and it's sort of good to get this information from a reputable source, being yourself. And for those of you who are interested further, they know where to go.
And hopefully we can talk again, have a webinar, show some of the evidence, go a little bit deeper on this topic. And I'm looking forward to coming to Kenya, hopefully end of November, December, and also in February.
Yes.
So let's keep
Forward
talking,
to seeing you.
educating, get stuff in the media, tell people how to help themselves.
Yeah.
We know what to do. It's there. The science is there.
Yeah.
What we just need is the education. And Healthy You is fantastic because they can give you everything that you need to keep your immune system strong and not have to worry. Everything you want is the other side of fear.
Exactly. I love that outro. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all who are watching, and see you next episode.